So you've watched the Genie Plus video, and you feel confident enough in your ability to use the app, and you want to add some strategy. Does this describe you? If not, stop now. Don't further complicate things by watching this video. The basics for the Genie Plus video will go a long way to helping you have a great day. Still with us? Great! Let's talk about a few ways to really maximize your time in the parks. First, let's make sure you understand some key concepts, and then we'll lay out a strategy and give you a play-by-play of what a day looks like using these tactics. First, let's explain rope drop, which is the procedure Disney uses to open the parks. The phrase rope dropping means you arrive at the parks early enough to be near the front, where the rope is, allowing you to be among the first to board a ride. Guests are typically allowed into the park before the official posted opening time. At some point in each park, you will encounter cast members who are holding a rope to prevent you from moving past that area. When they decide to open the attractions for guests, which may be before the advertised opening time, they will lower the rope and allow guests to proceed to rides. With early park entry, Disney Resort guests are allowed access to parts of the parks 30 minutes prior to the posted opening time, allowing you even earlier access to the rides. If you combine rope dropping with early entry, you can really get a jump on your day. The key is to avoid the temptation to take pictures early in the morning. You want to be as close to the rope as possible, so save the picture taking for later in the day when the lines are longer than you want to wait. Second, make sure you understand the 120-minute rule because it is key to minimizing your wait time. The system says that you can book a new Lightning Lane selection when one of two things occurs. Either you tap into a ride, meaning you enter the ride and use your reserved Lightning Lane selection, or if your Lightning Lane selection is more than 120 minutes from the time you are booking it, you can book your next selection 120 minutes later. For example, if you book a selection at 9 a.m. with a return time of noon, Disney isn't making you wait until you tap into your noon return time before choosing another selection. You can do that 120 minutes after you booked your first selection, which would be 11 a.m. Be sure to set an alarm so you don't forget to book your next Lightning Lane. Pro tip: you can enter the Lightning Lane 5 minutes before your actual return time begins. 5 minutes, not 6. I tried, but that 5 minutes can really add up throughout the day. Another pro tip, the 10-minute trick. When booking your individual Lightning Lane attractions first thing in the morning, know that selections made by others can remain in their cart for up to 10 minutes, removing it from availability. There's often a surge of availability again right after the first booking window of the day opens, and sometimes again after the park opens. So be sure to refresh your screen for the first 2 to 20 minutes or so if you didn't get what you wanted. Refreshing your screen often throughout the day is also a good idea. As people's plans change, you might find availability for something that didn't have it earlier. So, here's our advice for how to tackle your day. First, stay off your My Day board for anything other than checking to see what reservations you have booked or other general information. In other words, disregard the Genie recommendations. Why? Because for the most part, Disney's system is steering lots of people in the same direction at once, to locations that are not in demand at that time. What does that look like? Well, on a recent trip, It's a Small World had a 5-minute wait time. I was already there, so I hopped in line. While on the ride, I noticed the Genie was telling me it was a good time to go to It's a Small World, just like it was telling everyone else. When I got off the ride, the wait time had jumped to 30 minutes because the Genie was sending everyone to the same place, to a ride that we know is going to have lower wait times at some point in the day. So, it's best to focus on the wait times in the app and not so much on the Genie's recommendations. That's what you do if you just want to know the basics. But you're here to learn some strategy, so here we go. At 7 a.m., we recommend booking your first Lightning Lane return time for the ride that is your highest priority. Concentrate on the rides under the Book First section of the Genie Plus cheat sheet, available on the Neverland Navigator or sent to you by your Neverland guide. Then we would recommend you buy whatever individual Lightning Lane selections you intend to purchase. The one exception for this order of booking is if you are buying an individual Lightning Lane selection for Rise of the Resistance. Do that first because it may sell out quickly. It doesn't matter what time you schedule your individual Lightning Lane purchase because they are not included in your Genie Plus selections, and the 120-minute rule doesn't apply. Another tip, be sure your credit card information is saved under your profile in your My Disney Experience account so you don't have to enter that information manually when purchasing your individual Lightning Lane selection. Your time isn't confirmed until you've gone all the way through the checkout process, so it may change by the time you're done entering that information or may sell out if it's a high-demand ride. So, speed matters here. What you do once you get to the park depends somewhat on your arrival time and what your objectives are for the day. You're going to ride more rides, plan for a break and come back in the afternoon or evening? Are you going to minimize walking, etc.? We cannot stress enough the importance of making use of the early entry time available to you if you are a Disney Resort guest. If you arrive at the park 1 hour prior to its actual posted opening time, you can probably rope drop twice, once for the early entry and then again for the regular park entry. This strategy allowed me to be the first person on 2 rides at Magic Kingdom on the same day. This really gives you a jump on the people who aren't there early. You can potentially knock out 2 headliners within minutes of the actual park opening time. If you are making use of early entry hours, focus on your top 2 most important rides, whatever those are for your family. At this point is when we would suggest you start stacking your selections. Remember, the parks are less crowded in the mornings, so use this time to ride attractions with low wait times without using your Lightning Lane selections, so you can utilize the stacking method I'm about to explain. This strategy works because you can actually have more than 2 Lightning Lane return times at once. You can even overlap your return times. Here's an example of stacking using arbitrary times. Let's say at 10 a.m., you decide to book a Lightning Lane selection with a return time of 7 p.m. At noon, you can book your next Lightning Lane selection because of the 120-minute rule. Set that alarm so you don't forget. At noon, you book your next Lightning Lane selection for a return time of 6:30. Set your alarm for 2 p.m. and then book your next Lightning Lane return time for 6 p.m. At 4, you grab your next Lightning Lane return time for 5. You're now holding or stacking 4 Lightning Lane selections with return times between 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. This is a great strategy to use if you're planning to take a break during the day and come back to the park, if you're park hopping, or if you are finding the wait times to be manageable and you know you will want to ride some rides twice. In that case, you wouldn't want to use your Lightning Lane selection early in the day since you can only use it once per day for each attraction. The key to this strategy is having a little knowledge about the rides and which ones are must-dos for your family. Big tip, you can see ride details in the app, and we suggest doing that before your trip. We recommend you create a top picks list on your tip board using the Genie, as explained in an earlier video. When you're in the parks, you'll want to edit this throughout the day to remove rides you've ridden so the app shows the most relevant information at the top of your list. This can save you time scrolling for what you want. On your Genie Plus cheat sheet, you'll see we've broken the attractions into 3 categories to help you know which rides are most likely to run out of availability the soonest. Focus first on the Book First attractions, followed by the Book Next options, and fill in with the Book Anytime options. And don't forget the importance of refreshing your screen to update return time options, even if there is a point in the day where the app says none are left. On a recent trip, there were no options available at Hollywood Studios, but 30 minutes later, we were able to grab Millennium Falcon. Inventory changes because people cancel or change their plans. Disney adjusts the wait times, etc. So, refreshing the screen is your Jedi trick. Hopefully, you've gotten the gist of how to really maximize your day with your Lightning Lane selections. So now I'm going to tell you what a day using these strategies actually looked like for me. At 7 a.m., I got a Lightning Lane for Peter Pan's flight with a return time of 10 a.m. and purchased the individual Lightning Lane selection for Seven Dwarfs Mine Train with a 5:30 return time. Then I headed to the park. Magic Kingdom was scheduled to open at 9 a.m., meaning I could take advantage of the early entry beginning at 8:30. I arrived at 7:49 and they started letting us into the park at 7:52. First, I headed to the Tomorrowland area where a cast member verified I was in fact a Disney Resort guest, and I waited for the rope drop. At 8:30, I was the first person to ride Space Mountain. I then went behind the castle to avoid the people corralled in the front who were not able to use early entry hours and waited to rope drop Frontierland. At 8:55, the rope dropped and I made my way to Big Thunder Mountain where I was the first person on my second ride of the day. After this, I rode Splash Mountain, Haunted Mansion, and It's a Small World because they had short wait times and were on the way to my first Lightning Lane selection. I got on Peter Pan's flight and selected my next Lightning Lane selection at 10:21. It was for the Jungle Cruise with a 3:15 return time, and set an alarm to remind myself to book my next Lightning Lane at 12:21. I knew I had some shopping to do and pictures to take and would want lunch, so I was okay with that gap. I then rode Barnstormer and Dumbo before breaking to shop and see the characters, etc. At 12:21, my alarm reminded me it was time to book another Lightning Lane selection, so I put down my hot dog from Casey's Corner and hit the jackpot with a Lightning Lane return time for Buzz Lightyear of 12:35. I finished my lunch, and once I tapped into Buzz at 12:50, I got a return time for Mad Tea Party at 1. After defeating Zurg, I stopped for a few minutes on my way to the teacups to enjoy a cast member who was painting on the pavement using water. Pretty incredible stuff. I tapped into the teacups at 1:11 and grabbed Pirates of the Caribbean for 2:55. I could have kept going with back-to-back return times based on availability at this point, but I didn't see anything else with a closer return time, and I wanted to go watch the Monsters, Inc. Laugh floor show and went into Fairy Tale Hall to visit with Princess Elena and Cinderella. And because Pirates of the Caribbean and the Jungle Cruise ride are beside each other, it made sense to grab the 2:55 time slot that overlapped with the Jungle Cruise time. I even had time to enjoy a Dole Whip. I tapped into Pirates 5 minutes early and was then able to grab Big Thunder Mountain for a 4:25 return time. After I tapped into Jungle Cruise at 3:15, I scooped up a Tomorrowland Speedway for 4 p.m. and headed that direction for a quick lap around the Speedway. I won, by the way. I was able to return immediately and pick up another Lightning Lane return time, so I got Under the Sea, Journey of the Little Mermaid for 5:10, right before my return time for Seven Dwarfs Mine Train at 5:30. Obviously, my goal was to ride as much as possible and not to minimize walking, so I headed back over to Big Thunder Mountain and rode it for the second time that day. Remember, the first time I didn't use a Lightning Lane pass, so I was able to use it when the lines were much longer. After using that one, I picked up the Mini Adventures of Winnie the Pooh at 5:40. On my way back to Fantasyland, I rode Prince Charming's Regal Carousel before going to check out Ariel's ride. Once I tapped into the Little Mermaid, I booked a return time for Magic Carpets of Aladdin at 6:20. I walked on to Seven Dwarfs Mine Train using the Lightning Lane, rode it at 5:30, and then walked across the path to Winnie the Pooh for the 5:40 return time, then made my way back to Aladdin. By this point, I was getting close to my reservation time for the fireworks dessert party, so I decided to grab a quick pick in front of the castle and then enjoyed the show with some desserts and beverages. I could have booked a few more for after the fireworks, but I was pretty tired and had an early flight out, and I had accomplished 21 attractions in one day, so I consider that a huge success. Remember to book your top rides first in case they aren't available later in the day, and then fill in with the others. And one last important tip, you can see these things in the app before your trip, so really try to take some time and play around with it before you leave. It will save you some frustration once you're ready for the magic to begin. We hope you have a magical adventure.